Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lord Gaming YouTube channel. My name is Joseph Repko. I'm the senior editor of the website, and today we have two very special guests in the room with us today. We have with us Mrs. Kat Kingsley, the principal writer of Warframe. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing just fine. Just woke up, but ready to talk to you both. And we have with us also Mr. Adrian Bott, the lead writer of Warframe. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, fine. It's surprisingly warm for England, so I'm sweltering in the British heat because we're very, very wussy over here and can't handle it.
I live in Florida, basically right on the sea of the states, so it's kind of
I salute you.
I understand. Alrighty, so before I kind of get into kind of like a brief history with CAD, considering we talked earlier in the year, Adrian, I kind of wanted to go with you first. I wanted to ask you first your journey into the games industry in general, and then how you kind of found yourself at Digital Dreams, and then basically becoming the lead writer over there. If you can take me on that journey.
It's a long journey. I mean, it starts when I was back at school in the 1980s when I, through a rather convoluted series of events, ended up writing a regular column for Commodore User, which is a Commodore 64 magazine. Me and a friend, Dan Gilbert, had a column called Play to Win, which was all about sort of strategies for beating the latest Commodore 64 games. They would send us the game. We would get it sort of mapped and solved in, as short a time as we could manage. So that was kind of a fun introduction to things. Then I tried to go slightly more conventionally through university and stopped doing quite so much on the way of computery stuff, which was, I think, ultimately a mistake because, my heart was very much more in the sort of computer gaming field. After various sort of adventures and fun things like running a bookshop, I ended up getting into the tabletop gaming writing industry.
Oh, wow.
I wrote a lot of books back in the day for a company called Mongoose Publishing, as well as several others, writing in the sort of heyday of the D20 kind of explosion when everything kind of went a little bit crazy on the publishing front. And after doing that, I was involved with computer games journalism for a little bit with Massively, and I also ended up working with NCSoft on some of the stuff that they were doing, which is what brought me and the family back down south to Sussex, where I was originally from. So I was working on Aeon Tower of Eternity, and that came to an end. And then through an even more sort of convoluted series of employments, also including being a ghostwriter for children's books, which I did about 50 of, and did my own series as well. I was contacted by my very dear old friend Cam Rogers saying, we need some, writing talent for Warframe to cover Brian Mole's paternity leave. Are you up for it? So I ended up getting involved with DE initially on a temporary basis. We got on extremely well. They took me on a permanent basis as a writer, and last year I ended up getting, I think it was last year, I ended up taking over the lead writer position. So lots and lots and lots of words.
I gotcha. So what was kind of like the first thing that you were involved in over at Digital Extremes? Because I know Kat Kingsley was brought on specifically for Warframe 1999 as part of the Hex, as well as the Kim messaging system. And obviously now we're two more updates after that with Techrod Encore and Isle Weaver. So I always want to get with her on what she's been involved in since then. But I want to know what you were involved with first. The
first thing I was involved with was Heart of Deimos. I did a lot of work with the Intrati family and some of the sort of rank up stuff and the character dialogue. Some of that was me. Quite a goodly proportion of daughter, father, son as well. I mean, grandmother in particular. I mean, grandmother, I had a lot of fun with because I was kind of allowed to cut loose and create this sort of incredibly eccentric, really quite sort of British combination of, Pratchett's Nanny Og and
they kind of feel like a mafia family to me. So
yeah, and I was going to say, what's her face from Maggie Smith, that's the name I had in mind. So yeah, a sort of aristocratic but extremely strange set of entities. And yeah, that was monstrous fun. I had a lot of fun with that, and kind of hit the ground running and kept at it since then, really, in one capacity and another.
Okay, I know exactly what I'm working with now. Awesome. Oh, sorry, Jade Shadows before 1999. I'm so sorry, Miss Cat.
No worries. That was actually my first quest they had me working on was Jade Shadows, which was a pretty intense and hysterical introduction to writing for Warframe. I joke teasingly it was kind of like hazing. They were like, "Oh, this one's pregnant." I'm like, "That's nice. What's a Warframe?" I still think that probably for the rest of my career, having to type the words "insert childbirth minigame here" into a script will be the wildest thing I will ever have to write. So that still holds the record, and we'll probably have to hold the record for a while, I hope, anyway.
Who knows? Obviously, so okay, so let's go back. Let's kind of like fast forward the clock. So past 1999, Tech World Encore, and Weaver recently. I kind of wanted to know, Kat, in your position, what was it like kind of seeing the reception to the characters, Kaya, Minerva, Felomir, Blair, and kind of how that update was kind of received on kind of like the character basis, and then what were you kind of involved with in Weaver?
So it was really fascinating to see everyone's reactions to the characters because the conversations were structured, from my point of view, very differently than the original Hex, because we were under a different time constraint to the way that they were written, and because the characters weren't dateable, we wanted to give a different feeling to the way that they were engaged with. So they were more end-based writing, so that the stories that were told had more of a beginning and an ending with discrete good endings, bad endings, middle endings, etc., where the conversations with the Hex were more just relationship explorations. That your interactions with the roundtable characters were more about, here's a short story and go explore it. And so it was a very different way of using the system in a new way to tell a different kind of story with them. But what I loved was people's reactions to Lizzie, and like specifically was wild. I was not expecting the fandom to, I don't know why I didn't expect the fandom to go nuts for Lizzie, but the fact that they did just made me so happy. And because she was also, Flair and Lizzie were the most challenging of the set to write.
I can imagine it was a complete horror story, so it's kind of, well, not
exactly
horror, but it's just like seeing Flair and losing their sanity around Lizzie and having her take over a lot. It was kind of like every time you logged in, I actually had to make sure I was knowing which angle to take. Yeah.
And it was challenging also to try and make that frightening, because we did want it to feel like you were reading a horror story.
Yep.
And to try and generate that fear, and to the point where I was like, how can we do a jump scare? How can we work in a 1990s era jump scare? And Rebecca actually had me nerf the jump scare. It was originally supposed to be worse. So for the people who were like, who were coming for me because of the jump scare, it could have been worse. You were originally I was gonna force you to lean into the screen to read very tiny type first and then blast a thing at your face. So, thank Rebecca for that one. But the way that it really has still adopted, like the way the players have really adopted the characters, and also the way that the players have provided public feedback to the characters, we've also taken that to heart as well. The characters don't feel as interactive for the same reason, because they are linear branching stories. They aren't as fully random. They aren't as lengthy. They're much shorter stories. So all of that feedback has been heard and processed and may change how we work in the future. So Digital Extremes is one of the few companies where we really do take on that kind of feedback, and we really do try to incorporate that as much as possible.
Gotcha. Because obviously I've seen since then, like, with Tucker Encore and now Weaver, we've actually gotten more conversations with the Hex. And obviously with Weaver, I wanted to get started on that if we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're kind of returning to Duviri since its launch in 2023, and it's kind of taken a dark turn with Nessie Rizalka now taking over. And as somebody who's been playing the game for many years, I always kind of see the game kind of bounce between multiple different updates, even with like the major stuff like New War or Whispers in the Walls. So we're kind of like moving from one thing to the next. It kind of feels like a direct continuation of 1999, but also tapping into Duviri at the same time. So, Adrian, I wanted to start with you. I wanted to see what it was like for you to kind of see 1999's story kind of get interwoven, I guess is a way of saying it, with Duviri.
It was delightful because it was something I was really, really keen to do. I mean, when we last hear from Nessie, slash, indifference overshadowing, it's on the Zariman. We hear her voice taunting us and saying, none of this matters. Albert's going to burn them all anyway. So it's not actually all that far from the Zariman to Duviri. It's just like out the back door, turn left, keep going, can't miss it. Straight off the end of the world, goodbye, as Thrax would put it. But it struck me that it was a natural progression for us to take the concept of Duviri as a kingdom with a throne in which so much sort of symbolic authority is vested, and really sort of have that shock value by having somebody unexpected in that throne. And I do know that it was jarring for quite a lot of people who weren't expecting it, and there was a kind of reaction of what's Nessie doing in Duviri. I was like, okay,
exactly how I felt. Sorry,
she was on the Zariman moments before.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Just like, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a perfectly valid reaction to have. I'm not saying anybody's wrong for having it. I'm articulating the kind of sequence in my head that led to me kind of wanting to see Nessie Rizalka with the indifference overshadowing her, kind of using her as the means of taking away something that is ours. So the question of sort of motivation, values, I mean, who exactly wants what? And is that more of a sort of Nessie reaction? Is that pettiness? Is that possessiveness? That vindictiveness? Is that something about her that the indifference is somehow latching onto and pushing and nurturing? Quite possibly, I think.
Well, obviously in the new Duviri area, Scar's Landing, and some of the areas around it, there's little secrets, maybe some bodies of people, and obviously I'm not going to say any that's the real people. It's just kind of like maybe a way of like breaking down her psyche, maybe making it easy to possess her, or is it kind of something different in your view?
To my mind, the little sort of lore snippets that you get from what you find there were an opportunity to kind of present things from her point of view, and you do learn something from them about what it's like in her interior mental landscape. Sorry, it's a loud motorcycle going past. You learn more about the kind of dynamic between what's left of her and what's possessing her at that point. And I think a key line is the one about how she is seeing the consequences of what's happened, or what she thinks has happened, and she has a human reaction to it, and this sort of presence inside her quickly swallows down the human bile that rises in her as a consequence. So it's not by any means the sort of cut and dried, I possess you, you're fine with it, let's go and do bad things. There is a dynamism, there is resistance, there is still, I think it's fair to say, quite a bit of Nessie left in there. So exciting and interesting to me.
Well, it's because obviously there's still like some moments where she's talking about like in something that obviously I thought it was like a stylistic choice to have her with the like the little pipe, but I kind of understand what that is, and it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing with what she's having to go through as a person, the Fervon and the tech rod in her, and it's kind of it makes every time that I'm talking to Minerva and Velimir now kind of a little more scary. It's like, do they know? So, or
there's the line that Nessie says about being offered a handshake with her own severed hand. That is very much one of my favorite lines in the update, or severed arm rather, and because it is her whole arm. But I will say that if you are clever and you find all of the little hidden secrets, you are able to, shall we say, close a loop with mom and dad. So
yeah,
if you dig a little deeper, you can at least maybe give some peace of mind to Velimir and Minerva, who were. I loved writing Lizzie, because writing an Eldritch horror is always one of my favorite things to do in the world. But writing Minerva and Velimir was fundamentally arguing with the two halves of my brain. So them was just, and then Drifter just in the backseat of the car with like on a long car ride with his parents, just.
It's like, oh god, they're fighting again, right?
Yeah.
Just being like, I literally had to be there. Like, I have to let the player speak. But
in the back of the car ride, I never pictured it like that. So, Kat, obviously, considering you've been from Jade Shadows to 1999 Tech Rod Encore, and now moving into Isleweaver, what was it kind of like for you to be involved with kind of like the continuation of Duviri's storyline in a way? How did you feel about it?
It was interesting because, I mean, for full disclosure, I had no involvement in the original Duviri. It was all Ryan and Adrian. Ryan Mole, who's our senior narrative designer, and so they sort of took over for Isleweaver, handling all of the brunt of that. And so I was handling the expansion content for the Kim system, and one of the other major projects I've been working on for the first half of this year was all of the new player experience rework. So I've been
really?
Yep. So I've been handling a lot of that streamlining of the star chart and a lot of all the rework to Nata that was done, and trying to streamline the stuff around Cetus and the Loner Railjack and the Loner Necromech and all of that, to try and make that a little bit less trip hazardy. So while I was handling all of that, these guys were doing all of the Isleweaver stuff. My main contribution was to the fragments that you can find scattered around. So I handled that.
What's weird is I actually have like collected a majority of them. I think I still have one or two left. I can't remember. It's been a minute, but once I do, I'm definitely going to be listening to all of it, because I do kind of like Duviri's take on the lore fragment stuff, where you're able to actually listen and not just read and picture it in your mind. It's like you're being told the story directly to you. And I really like that change in pace. So
there's some really evil fragments that are hidden in this one. I was screaming at the level 20 designers for a couple of them. So you're not alone. If you
where they're hidden is evil. I mean, not just the content is evil.
Oh yeah, whoever put it in the Undercroft, that's evil right there.
The ones in the loading area in the Undercroft, I was like, oh.
They are hard to find, so it's like
yeah.
But I did love that aspect of the original Duviri Codex fragments, which I wrote, is the sort of kind of lost tale storytelling aspect, because Duviri is of course kind of built around a story around the Tales of Duviri book, so it's really got that kind of narrative vibe to it. So being able to sort of have Akrithis narrating the sort of the storytelling fragments of the Lost Islands, one of which is now not as lost as it was. Scholar's Landing is back, and that was in itself one heck of a thing to build up to, because I'm fully aware how much anticipation is invested in things like that by our players. So I was absolutely thrilled with how it was realized, and the kind of correlation between the brutalism of what we get there and what has been manifesting in the Intrati labs. So
Gotcha. So obviously, I want to say something about the lore fragments. Obviously, it's kind of like fleshing out the world in kind of like a background way, but offering players a way to kind of get involved with that lore in a way. So one of the questions I wanted to ask was, do you guys ever feel like you're given enough time with each update, considering how often Warframe has to move to kind of the next big thing to keep the player base hyped and engaged? Whatever moving from like Whispers on the Walls, there was that little brief tease in 1999, and something that was something like, okay, this is coming next year. You can stay involved in it. We'll do little bits here and there with the Lotus Eaters, and then move into 1999. In past years, I didn't really see that to a degree. Like, obviously, there was little events, leading into stuff like the New War, like Scarlet Spear. But do you on the writing team ever feel like you're given enough time to kind of flesh out the themes, concepts, everything involving the story for each major update?
The trick, I mean, with video games, like all creative projects that work towards a deadline, if you don't have a deadline, it's never done. You will work on it forever. You need to call it finished, because you will just polish and polish and polish and polish and work on it and work on it and work on it. And there is a point of diminishing return where you will work on it for 8 times longer than you've worked on it until that point to get 1% better than where you are now. And so at some point you just need to call it and ship it and let it ride. And especially because when you're designing games, there's so much of it you can't know. And so a lot of what we do, and especially like, say, take something like the Kim system, the relationship system, we had no idea how it was going to be received. We had no idea how players were going to react with it, what parts of it they were going to like, what parts of it they weren't going to like. So we could sit there and polish it for another 2 years and then ship it, and then have all of our learning, but why? And so there's a lot of, we could sit there and work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it, or by this sort of rigor at which we work, we are forced to get things done to a certain level and then ship it and get on to the next thing. So I think there is a dangerous temptation to spend more time on things, hoping that you will get it to a better point. And I've seen a lot of other companies and other places fall into a trap where that bleeds into months, that bleeds into years, that bleeds into delays, that then leads to a product never shipping, or shipping still half finished,
Right. Gotcha.
Absolutely. Yeah, the tautness of the deadlines, the limited amount of time, I think it compels you to be as impactful as you possibly can with what you've got to work with, in terms of how much material you can realistically include, and also the means by which you have to tell the story. You can only have so many cinematics, you can only really have so many voice lines, and they can only stand so many repetitions. So it narrows your focus quite refreshingly in some ways. So I'm not about to say we would love more time, give us more time, but it's reality rather than the conditions of our work in the corporate context that are compelling us to focus, because it's not like anybody could create more hours in the day and give them to us. It's the tautness of the work itself. Sorry,
well, I just have to say, as kind of like a player first and games media representative second, I kind of wanted to say to both of you that you've really done a really great job in Warframe story. It's been like, obviously it's very crazy, like speaking from the outset, it's like, okay, so first it's just man on the wall, and then obviously there's this work. It's like you have to go into all these details, but it's like once you're there and you're seeing it kind of unfold in front of you, like going from a gothic mad scientist lab going into like this concrete desert-ish kind of combination, and then going into 1999, it's grit, that gritty, grounded reality. Kind of seeing how you guys are able to grab different, like very different concepts for settings and realize them as well as you have is just, it's mind blowing to me. I really have no idea how you guys do it.
Thank you. It really speaks to the world that was created by Steve and Jeff and the team before us and Rebecca and her creative leadership, because we can go to places like 1999 and then Duviri and then who knows where next. And then we can jump to all of these fantastical places because the through line is the human story. And as long as we're doing that, it's all still Warframe. And because we were set up with Warframe Weird, we can hack up a hairball out of a helmet and go basically anywhere. So it's just, it's so much fun. And it lets us tell wild and amazing stories. We just have to make them good stories. And as long as we're pulling that off, we'll be here, and hopefully we'll still have players.
There is a certain joy, if I just may sort of quickly chip in being aware, not too aware, but certainly aware of the craziness of it, which is something that Kat did beautifully in the Kim system, by having the drifter be the one to actually articulate what they'd been through to the hex, particularly Quincy. So you have this magnificent kind of sequence where the drifter talks all about what they've been through, and Quincy's response is, "What WTF did I just read?" It's like the operator, over the table in the New War.
That iconic scene, I love it.
Absolutely, that's Steve, and that is a thing of beauty, because once in a while you do need to take stock and go, this is insane.
That cutscene single-handedly is the cutscene for Warframe for me. Is the drifter and the operator sitting down and eating sushi, and that's the impetus for Square Spaghetti. Was that cutscene, because that was one of the first conversations I wrote for Arthur, and I was just biffing my way through a conversation, and I was like, something about that popped into my head, and I was like, the Square food. Just
make it spaghetti. Just make it spaghetti.
I don't know if we were having spaghetti that night or if we'd had spaghetti the night before, and I was like, what would be funny to chop into cubes? Spaghetti. I don't know. And I just ran with it. And now people are making gelatin cubes online and eating it. And this is not a power I should have.
All right. But before I let you both go, I have one more question. Obviously, we are a week away from Tennocon 2025, the 10th annual event. And it's exactly what I was kind of about to ask. Like, how are you both handling both the pressure from the community on what is potentially going to be shown next, and how hyped are you for it?
Incredibly hyped. How are we handling it? I can't speak to Kat, but I mean, I'm looking forward to being able to sleep. I mean, the narrative team is on the main stage for the first time, I think, as part of the presentation. So it's me, Kat, Ryan, and Amelia Tyler, the voice of Eleanor, and Corey is going to be asking the questions. So that is something I'm going over and over and over in my head, thinking, how can I, best prep for that? But not nervous at all. No, not really.
I will be panicking off camera, and then the moment I step on stage, I'll be fine. That's generally my MO. But I'm so excited. I'm going to be, I love meeting the community. I love talking to fans. I love interacting with people. I love hearing about what they liked. I love hearing about what they didn't like. I love hearing about what they want more of, what they engaged with the most, what they're looking forward to. Because I love getting all of that buzzing around in my head, because it gives me fodder for when I'm going to be sitting down in front of my next pile of branching narrative conversations. So it'll be very exciting.
And that's definitely what separates Digital Extremes from a lot of other players in the industry, where it's kind of like you guys are always going out of your way to basically listen and interact and kind of fully understand what the community wants instead of just deciphering it behind the scenes and hoping that you get it right. So I just want to say thank you guys both for always being kind of there to listen to that stuff on your end.
It's our pleasure. I mean, I'm speaking for Adrian, but
this is a method of doing things that was in place long before either Kat or I was part of this, and I think I speak for us both when I say we're proud to be continuing it. It's it's how DU works.
We're professional lurkers on all of the socials, so we see it all go by, and we delight in all of it. So.
All right.
We do that.
And I just wanted to say thank you both for your time. It's been an absolute honor being able to speak with both of you again.